December 1513. A man sits alone in a farmhouse, his shoulders still healing from torture, exiled from the only life he ever built. He picks up a pen and writes the most dangerous letter of his century, not a complaint, but a diagnosis of what life actually is, stripped of every comforting lie you were ever sold. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli, and buried inside his private letters is one principle almost every scholar skips: the idea that changes how you read every betrayal, every failure, every relationship you've ever had. By the end of this, you'll see your own life through it, and you won't be able to unsee it. 14 months before that letter, he was secretary of Florence, negotiating with kings, running militias. Then the Medici returned to power. He was arrested, tortured, dropped 6 times on the strap. He never confessed, because there was nothing to confess. They stripped his title and sent him to rot on a small farm outside the city. Any ordinary man collapses here. Machiavelli didn't. By day, he argued with firewood merchants and gambled with the butcher. But at evening, he wrote, "I take off the day's clothing, covered with mud, and put on garments regal and courtly. I enter the ancient courts of ancient men." Dressed for a meeting that existed only in his mind, he wrote The Prince, the book that would define power for 5 centuries. His first principle: life doesn't reward goodness. It rewards accuracy, the ability to see people exactly as they are, not as you wish they were. In the Discourses, he wrote that all men act correctly only when compelled, not because people are evil, but because self-interest is gravity. It doesn't hate you, it simply operates, and the friend you're sure would never betray you, you just haven't applied enough pressure to find out. In 1494, Florence proved it. When French troops invaded, the Medici, rulers for 60 years, collapsed overnight. The people who'd praised them for decades looted their palace within hours. Machiavelli, 25 years old, watched loyalty evaporate the moment the conditions that made it comfortable disappeared. He never forgot it. This is where his philosophy splits from every self-help book you've read. He believed life is a war between 2 forces. The first is Virtu, not virtue, but effective force, skill, decisiveness, the strategic muscle that pushes back against chaos. The second is Fortuna, the blind, indifferent flood of events no one controls, disease, timing, the betrayal you never saw coming. Machiavelli believed Fortuna governs half of everything that happens to you. Half. No discipline changes that half. But the other half belongs entirely to Virtu. And most people burn it on arguments that don't matter. Relationships already dead. Careers chosen to please someone else. Then the flood comes, and they have no embankments left. Compare that to men like Francesco Sforza, born into a mercenary family, with no title and no inheritance, who turned raw strategic force into the dukedom of Milan. He didn't pray for better circumstances. He built the kind of man circumstances couldn't destroy. Power that's given gets taken back. Power that's built endures. He also revealed something most people misread as advice to lie. The world runs on surfaces. People judge you by your signals, not your substance, which is exactly why the goal isn't to fake competence. It's to close the gap until your surface and your depth are the same thing. Stop explaining yourself. Start being undeniable. Then comes the cycle he traced through every empire he studied. Strength builds order. Order builds comfort. Comfort builds weakness. Weakness builds collapse. And the ashes started again. Rome didn't fall to barbarians. Rome fell because Romans stopped being Roman first. Watch your own life for the same pattern. The moment you stop training is the moment the river starts rising. His answer wasn't despair. It was necessity. Pressure as the sculptor of character. He spent 14 years in exile, unread and ignored, writing anyway. The Prince wasn't published until 5 years after his death. He built for a harvest he'd never see, because, in his words, God favors those who act, not those who wait for permission. Build your virtue. See people as their actions prove them, not as you hope. Prepare your embankments before the flood arise. Accept that comfort is temporary, and the test is coming regardless. His deepest contempt was never reserved for the wicked. It was reserved for the passive, the man who watches the world burn from his window and asks what he could possibly do. 500 years later, His letters still cut this deep because the man in that farmhouse never stopped moving. He built something that outlasted every person who tried to bury him. Somewhere in you, reading this right now, that same instinct just woke up. Don't let it go back to sleep.